I definitely agree with your point there. I think manufacturers are still in the early phase of adopting, I want to say, and look, I don't want to say that it's the cloud necessarily. I think this is mostly DevOps slash like IT slash like software engineering best practices that have been in
Yeah.
place for years now. So I think that
Hmm.
the right groups are certainly looking into this and understand how it works and are deploying in this way, but I think it's slow in making its way across the industry. And for better or
Yeah.
for worse, I think as OT, I want to say predominantly engineers, I think we get too fixated on what's happening on the floor, what's happening inside of a PLC. And I think it takes, because you've had the experience maybe of SCADA and MES systems, you've seen the IT world, and it takes
Yeah.
those kind of individuals that can help bring this in. And if you don't have them in an organization, it just becomes a very difficult battle of IT being just the guys who bring switches in or deploy a VM or a server.
Yeah. And I think that has been that divide, the OT IT divide. We've been talking about that for at least 10 years, right? And I actually think the more interesting way to think about that going forward is not OT versus IT, but on-prem versus off-prem. And what I mean by that is we started out, here's a Modicon 584 controller, and we can control this bottling line. And then we're like, we need to see what it's doing. So we built a UI, right? And then a few years later, we said we can monitor how many bottles it made, and we can start to create some metrics. And so all of a sudden now we have MES and we have batch processing. We have all these auxiliary functionalities to the process that we've added on. We've bolted all those on. And in a lot of cases,
Hmm.
there's still this monolithic thing. And it's become, as we've added functionality, it's become more and more expensive to build and deploy and deliver one of those things. I think that where I think are going and can go and should go is to go back to putting only the things I need on site that are mission critical to running that line at that factory or that operations environment. Only that functionality should be on site. Everything else should be in the cloud. I don't need to calculate my OEE. I don't need to spin up a server for that. That's not critical. If I lose my connection on a bad day, then I'll still make my product. And also, of course, the cloud connectivity has gotten much more robust. So actually losing that connection is much less likely. So I think that and then when we start to think about that, then it's like, oh, wait a second, there's all these other technologies up there, like Kafka, and there's all sorts of cool stuff up there that can
Hmm.
produce the same information for you and maybe in a more elegant, cost effective way.
There are
Maybe,
just so many ways to go with that, Huck. I think it's an interesting structure. Scott in the chat is saying IT is evil and stupid. So thank you for that, Scott. I actually got a good laugh out of that. I got
mm,
a good laugh out of it when I saw that come through. I think it's interesting. I think that there are certainly one. I love the deployment that you're doing, and I love as you were talking me through initially when you started doing it of, hey, I'd like to go build this using kind of the normal tools that we've used in industrial for a long time, but also, hey, these guys don't have the budget to go be able to spend $100,000 on software and then add hardware on top of it because their budget is $100 a month. So it's a very
yeah.
different application. I think it's really interesting. So I guess first and foremost, thank you for sharing that with us. I think I want to go highlight some more of those as we are continuing down this manufacturing hub in general. Probably not today because Huck has already regaled us time and time again. But no, that is awesome. I feel like that story, what you're doing, and your thoughts lead me into kind of the next question that I ask all of our guests. I want you to predict the future, Huck. So what do you think either the future of software or the future of systems integration looks like?
I guess I already answered my first part of my answer is what I was just talking about is I think that we will do more things off-prem and in the space. And I also think that we will do, and maybe this is me being hopeful again,
Mhm.
definitely one of my flaws is optimism, but think that we're headed towards a more collaborative industry. I see that happening more, and I see people sharing their solutions, and I'm really hopeful for that because reinventing the wheel's kind of dumb. And it's one of the things that I think has held us back for a big part of my career is if it wasn't built here, then it wasn't any good. And everything was a reinventing of the wheel or templatizing the thing so we can be more efficient with it, but we're not going to share that. And I see that changing, and I hope that trend continues. And I want to be a part of that,
Absolutely.
of collaborating in the field on what are the best practices and how do we architect and engineer and implement our unified namespace, right? We almost got all the way through the pod without saying unified namespace, but there it is. But that is an idea. That it's nothing more than an idea. And what it needs is best practices around. It's a really good idea too, by the way.
Mhm.
Whoever came up with it, I don't know who it was, but actually, what are the best practices for implementing that thing, and how do we get our OEMs to be a part of it?
Mhm.
That's where I see us having the opportunity to be more collaborative in the industry.
Absolutely.
Side comment, Dave, if I may. I think we probably should have extended this podcast to like 3 hours because now I'm curious the architectures and I even had some questions on the implementation of your Kafka queues. But anyways, that's maybe a
Oh,
story for
we should
another
talk
day.
about that, Vlad. We can do that offline.